Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Liz Loves Books. Let's talk about my October wrap-up where I had 24 books read and 2 DNFs. We are going to start off today by talking about the novellas and short stories that I read, hence as to why I've been able to read 24 books this past month. So I read the Scared Sexy collection. It is an Amazon original stories collection by really popular romance authors. There is Hot for Slayer by Ellie Hazelwood, which I gave 3 stars. It also has a Goodreads rating of 3.90, and this has to do with a lot of vampire enemies and basically how they are trying to hunt each other down. And then it turns into something more. But then the next one I read was Falling by Christina Lauren, and I've read from Christina Lauren before, so I thought that this would be really good. It has a 3.39 average rating on Goodreads and deals with an MMC who is an angel and then a human FMC. I gave this 2 stars. I didn't really like it. I thought it was a little bit unbelievable, and just the style of it all just was not it for me. And then I read Beautiful Nightmare by Katie Robert. It has a 3.26 average rating on Goodreads. It has to deal with a FMC who is a demon and our MMC who is a human. I gave this a 3.5 stars. I never read anything by Katie Robert before, but I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really clever and unique. And basically our female main character is a sleep paralysis demon, and she has to make her living by trying to scare people so she can kind of like obtain their essence in that way. And let's just say she finds a different way to gain their essence. And then my favorite of the collection was Spicy Little Curses by J.T. Geisinger. I hadn't read anything by this author before. They're typically known for darker romance. It has a 3.52 average rating on Goodreads, and our male main character has like this family curse that's been thrust upon his whole family. And our FMC is someone who is trying to like figure out why this is occurring. I gave this one a 4 stars. I said it was my favorite in the collection. I really loved the writing style, and I'm kind of intrigued to read more of J.T. Geisinger's work, even though it is dark romance, which isn't usually my jam. So we will see if I like it or not. And then there were 2 other books in the collection. There was Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon and My Boyfriends Are All Monsters by Kimberly Lemming. I DNF'd both of these. I had a feeling I wouldn't like the Kimberly Lemming one because I have tried to read her really popular series. I can't remember the name of it. And I DNF'd that. So I didn't have too high of hopes. And then Ruby Dixon I've never read, but both of them have a little bit more outlandish characters and plot lines. And so I thought I wouldn't really mesh well with that. And I was correct. So I DNF'd both of those. And then I found a short story by Frida McFadden called Death Row, which is part of the Alibis collection, another Amazon original short story, and has a Goodreads average rating of 3.55. I was liking this until the end, and then I gave it a 2 star because I thought the ending was really terrible and stupid, and I felt like I wasted my time reading 95 pages of this story. So I would suggest you don't read it. It's not necessary. And then I read another set of the Amazon original stories collections. I read the stories from the Creature Feature series, which was released in 2023. I started off reading it because I was intrigued by the one that's called Big Bad by Chandler Baker. I ended up giving that one a 4 star, and it has a 3.73 average rating on Goodreads. I really liked Chandler's writing style. I had never read anything by her before. I liked just the plotting and the pace of the short story, so I'm definitely going to look into more of her work. And then I read the other stories. I read Best of Luck by Jason Mott. I gave that a 3 star. It has a 3.73 average rating on Goodreads. I thought the concept of it was interesting, but I felt overall it just kind of dragged and was a little bit boring throughout. And then I read In Bloom by Paul Tremblay. This has a 3.04 average rating on Goodreads and deals a lot with eco-horror. I gave it a 2-star, much like Death Row by Frida McFadden. I didn't like this one. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't like the way he used the ego horror in it, so it just was not for me. And then I also read The Pram by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. Has a 3.73 average rating on Goodreads, and I gave it a 3-star. I thought the writing was good. I just thought that the suspensefulness of it was just kind of boring. And then the next two I really enjoyed. I read It Waits in the Woods by Josh Malerman. And this one has a 3.68 average rating on Goodreads, and I gave it a 4-star. I really liked the writing style in this one, and it kind of kept me intrigued with our main character who was going through this forest trying to find her missing sister. And then I also read Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. This one has a 3.70 average rating on Goodreads, and I gave it a 4-star. I really liked this one a lot too. I thought it was really fast-paced and intense, and the descriptions on this one with the monster getting the people was just disgusting, and it went into a different direction that I did not expect. So with all of those short stories, mind you, they were between 50 to 100 pages each. So I read 10 of those alone and DNF'd 2 of them. So that already accumulates for 10 of my reads. And then I also read quite a few graphic novels this month. I kind of perused the library that I work at, our juvenile and YA graphic novel sections, to find any kind of spooky ones, and I found a lot of really good ones. So one book that I read is called Ghost Roast by Chanel and Shawnee Gibbs. They are a sister writing duo. I gave the book 4 stars. It's a YA contemporary with ghosts, and deals a lot with BIPOC rep, and our female main character and her is Black, and her whole family is, so that was a really fun little read. It has a 4.12 average rating on Goodreads, and the art style in it was really beautiful. A lot of like more muted like grays, blacks, purples, and it had a lot of really good messages in it too. And then I read books 1 and 2 in the Witch Boy series by Molly Knox Ostertag. This was in our juvenile graphic novel section at our library, but I would say it's probably more like upper juvenile, lower YA. And The Witch Boy, I gave 4 stars, and The Hidden Witch, the second book in the series, I also gave 4 stars. They both have 4.2 average ratings on Goodreads. And these ones are just really nice and light and easy, but they also do deal with some topics that are important for younger readers to know, like finding out your gender identity, social class, things like that, family dynamics, and how to navigate all of those things when you're in school and surrounded by people that don't always think that the way that you do. And then the last graphic novel I read was another juvenile graphic novel called The Firelight Apprentice by Brie Paulson. It has a 3.98 average rating on Goodreads, and I gave it a 4-star. Now, Brie Paulson is the author of The Garlic and the Witch and Garlic and the Vampire juvenile graphic novels, which I have also read and really enjoyed. I thought this one was really good because it was a little bit different than what she's previously written. Although I did prefer the Garlic and the Vampire and Witch series, I still thought that this standalone graphic novel was done really well. The art style was very distinctive, as it always is with Brie Paulson's books. And this one leaned a little bit more fantasy than her previous series, which I enjoyed. And then I randomly picked up like the last poetry book I had in my TBR collection called Clarity and Connection by Young Pueblo. It has a 4.28 average rating on Goodreads. I didn't give this one a rating. I tend to not give poetry a rating unless I'm reading it in a time where it really speaks to me and what I'm going through. I did not relate to everything that was in it, although I did kind of highlight and go through, but I am going to donate it just because I don't need to keep it on my shelves. But it is a really good poetry book to read if you are into that genre, or if you're looking for something that is going to help you through a heartbreak and kind of navigating going through something like that and coming out the other side a better person. Then a few books that I listened to on audio. I listened to 3 books. My first book of the month that I listened to was Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 star rating, and this was an adult horror, but it was much more so a social commentary type of horror, and it dealt a lot with the current political climate that we have here in the US, but of course, you know, giving things different names, so there isn't that copyright or intellectual, you know, what is the word? The intellectual freedom. And I feel like it did go on a little bit too long, and I feel like parts of it could have been condensed because I felt like it did start to get just a little bit repetitive throughout, although I did really like that there was 2 different POVs that we followed in the story, but they were from within the same extended family, and so you got to see both of the characters' viewpoints on what was happening to their other family members within this horror setting. And then I listened to a Libro FM ALC that I got from being able to work at my local bookstore. We get access to that as employees. So I picked Make Me a Monster by Kaylin Bayron. This was another YA horror novel by Kaylin. It has a 3.82 average rating on Goodreads, and this was a 2025 October release, so I got another new release in there, which is really good. It deals with a lot of BIPOC representation. Our FMC in the story is Black, and I believe so is our author. And there is a trigger warning for a lot of like death and trauma and gore. This one, again, is another kind of story similar in a way to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, where there is a social and political statement that is being made by the author, although this one didn't quite hit you over the head quite as much. But there is also somewhat of a like Frankenstein horror-esque element to this story too, and that's all I will say on that. I did end up giving this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but same with Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. It was a little drawn out, even though both of those books were only in the 300-page range. I felt like they were just a little draggy. And then my final audiobook for the month was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. This was for my in-person book club that I do at the bookstore that I work at. House Across the Lake has a 3.58 average rating. It is an adult thriller. And again, this one deals with a little bit of that social commentary, much less than the other 2, but a lot of like family dynamics and like the idea of fame and celebrity and the world of the rich. I ended up giving this a 2.5 star. I did not like it. The whole time I was listening to it, I thought it was rather boring. I wasn't really intrigued by the characters, the setting, the plot, anything. Our narrator for the book, I don't know if she's older or she just sounds older when she speaks, but I thought our main character for like a good like 25% of the book was like 70 years old, and then it turns out our character was like 35, 40. So that really threw me off, and I feel like that didn't help. It hindered my enjoyment of the book. And then there was also some elements at the end that I don't want to give away for spoilers' sake, but they just kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, this isn't out of the nowhere like good. This is out of the nowhere bad. And there was just like twist after twist and red herring after red herring, and eventually I was getting all the people jumbled in my brain, and I didn't know who was who and what was what. And it turns out that I wasn't the only one thinking that. I think the highest rating we had for this book at book club was a 3.5. Everyone was like 2.5 to 3, 3.5. So it did not go well. And this was my first book by Riley Sager, and will probably be my last. Never say never, but it could be. And then to our last couple books, I read all of these physically. I read Strange Houses by Yuketsu. I gave this a 4 star. It is an adult horror. I usually try to keep 4 and 5 stars on my shelves, but I decided that I didn't need Strange Houses and its companion Strange Pictures on my shelf, so those are in my car ready to donate or sell. And I've talked about this book a lot in length in other videos, so I won't expand on it here. But it is a very interesting, unique story and plotline. And then I read People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. I gave this a 3.5 stars. And unfortunately, I did recently decide to unhaul this book, although it took me a while to decide because I liked it, but I was like, did I like it enough to have it on my shelf and display it like I do with Out on a Limb, which I gave 5 stars? No. I just felt like the connection between the characters wasn't as strong as her other previous novels. And while I liked the story, I felt that there was also just a little bit too much going on with each character, and we weren't able to delve as deep into our MMC's family issues as we were with our FMC, especially considering they were setting up for the second book, which is probably going to be our MMC's sister's romance. I'm assuming. I don't know, but I just wish we would have gone more in depth into those relationships, and we didn't. And it was a lot of lust forward, and like the last scenes, like they were good, but they were supposed to be like this like beneficial, like friends with benefits teaching situation. And like there's literally like one scene, and it wasn't like he taught her anything. She just somehow just magically knew how to do absolutely everything, and it was like the best thing he's ever had. And I was like, no, that's not how that works. It doesn't work like that in real life. So it just felt a lot more unrealistic than her previous novel. So I was rather disappointed by that release. But then we can move on to my next book, which is finally one that I have, and that is Soul Searching by Lila Sage. This is Lila's first book in a new duology series that is a much more like spooky paranormal contemporary romance. It has a 3.74 average rating on Goodreads, so quite a bit lower than her previous quartet of cowboy romance novels. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. It's probably more so like a 3.75 if I did that intensive rating. But I figured it deserved a 4 more than it deserved a 3.5. And it took me a little bit to get into this, but once I got like a quarter or so of the way through, I became a lot more connected to our characters. And I discovered that I really liked our MMC Brady because he did remind me slightly somewhat of my fiance in certain terms. He was just more laid back, chill, kept our FMC calm, very matter of fact, and that's just kind of how my fiance is, so I was able to relate to him a little bit more. So I think that's why I liked it probably more than most people do, because I couldn't quite relate to either of the characters. I thought that the spooky vibes that Lila wrote was good because it isn't meant to be like a thriller or a horror, even like a full-on paranormal romance. It's a contemporary romance with like a paranormal like subplot, I would say. There's paranormal characters and vibes that come out and that our characters interact with, especially our FMC, but they're not the main part of the story. I feel like they're kind of used almost as like an allegory to our characters finding themselves, hence the title of Soul Searching. They're searching for something for themselves, and then they find that in each other. So I feel like this one was maybe just a little bit too deep and not as obvious as her previous books, and maybe that's why people have had some trouble with it. But overall, I really enjoy it, and I recommend it. We've got 2 more books left. My next book that I read was Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. It's the book 1 in the Tomes and Tea series. It has a 3.72 average rating on Goodreads, and it is a cozy fantasy. I ended up rating this a 4-star. Again, I think with October, I don't know if it was just I was in a reading mood, but it just took me a while to get into all these books. And I think that's why I read so many like short stories and graphic novels, because it was a little bit slow in the beginning, and it is supposed to be slower because it's more slice of life, as cozy fantasy is. But as I got into it, I was liking it more and more, and I was like, I'm just gonna pick this up when I just want something easy and chill to read for like a 20 to 30 minute time period. And it took me a lot longer to read than normal books, considering this is only like 300-ish pages. But I really enjoyed it, and I've got the other books in the series on my shelves, and so hopefully I can get to them soon. Then finally, the last book that I finished in October was A Treacherous Curse by Deanna Raybourn. This is book 3 in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. This book has a 4.15 average rating on Goodreads, and it is a historical mystery series. I ended up giving this book a 4-star. I gave the second book in the series 4 stars, and then the first book 5 stars. And I'm going through and annotating them as I read them. So I've got quite a few annotation tabs here, and I kind of do them to match each of the covers so that whenever I go back and reread this series, I can look back at my tabs. And I definitely think this is a series that is really rereadable because it's kind of a little bit of like a mystery of the week, of the day, of the year situation. And it just follows our main characters, Veronica Speedwell, and Stoker is what we call him. That's not his full name, but everyone knows him by Stoker. And since it's in a historical setting, you have a lot of that, you know, vibes with like the outfits and the towns and just the propriety and properness. But our FMC Veronica isn't your typical proper lady. She like lives by herself. She's unmarried. She's very open with her sexuality and just her personality. She is a lepidopterist, I think is what you call it, which is like a person who studies butterflies. And then Stoker is he kind of is like a man of all trades. One of his big things that he does though is like building and taxidermy and things like that, which was very popular during this time. And this one was probably my least favorite of the 3 so far, but I've heard the 4th book is like everyone's favorite because this is an extremely slow burn romance. I'm on book 3. They've only ever kissed barely, and that was in the previous book. And you just have like these little crumbs that get left and like little quotes by each of them about each other, or just like a hand touch here, a smile there, and it's just so good, especially within a historical setting. I hope you enjoyed your October reads. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of the same books and how you liked them or did not like them. And I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye guys.